This is the seal of Puyi. I am Bernardo Bertolucci, an Italian film director, and I directed some time ago The Last Emperor.
My name's Jeremy Thomas, and I produced The Last Emperor and spent many, many months in China. We're particularly happy with the titles on the film because we were looking to use a title artist to make the film, the titles. And we didn't want to go into a cliched version of main title scene. And then Bernardo had really liked Maurice Binder, who I in fact knew well because he'd been making all the titles at Pinewood Studios for the Bond movies, amongst other movies. And he was based at Pinewood, and I used to see him there occasionally. He was a great master of putting together a sequence which he would then involve himself in shooting them and composing them and making it as a sort of a whole scene. And he was a great artist in his own right at doing that. I'm thrilled that I worked with him on a film. There were many meetings, and when the music came, he was very, always wanted to do it with the music, and we had to have the music was something very important for him. And I think that we had some problems with the timing of that because normally you record the music after you've done the titles often, and he wanted to do it with the title music because he wanted it in time with the music.
I am Ryuichi Sakamoto. You see, I'm acting as Mr. Amakasu. Also, I wrote the music for The Last Emperor. Bernardo used 3 composers: Konsu, Ryuichi Sakamoto, myself, David Byrne, but we just worked separately.
A train with a lot of smoke, like a dragon, and the emperor has been called the dragon, and from the smoke you see these soldiers. Trains, the wind, the rain, the snow. I always found these elements very, very cinematic.
Nowhere better to shoot a scene with a steam train in China, because when we filmed, steam was still in use, and the carriages were available. We could manage to find a train with the period 50s.
I didn't want to localize immediately the character of Puyi. I wanted him confused. I gave a bit before to somebody else who is in fact the governor of the prison and who has come to the station to welcome in some way the emperor. This is Inguo Chan,
who at that time had just been the Vice Minister of Culture.
Excellent stage actor, speaking perfect English, much better than me, in fact.
And we shot this in Manchuria, and we shot this in Changchun Station. It's an industrial city in the northeastern part of China. It's very, very cold. I remember when we shot the scene, we shot this. Very, very cold.
Here we had our Chinese and Italian painters of the crew together painting these frescoes of the around 50s kind of style.
Some extra work done by Scarfiotti designed paintings of the sort of, there's painting of the traditional Chinese Mao era painting. And you get to immediately understand where you are in the China of the period. We filmed in and around Beijing and in the Beijing studio. Then we went up to Dalian, which is a port on the northeast, where we shot the arrival of Reginald Johnson and the ship sequence. And then we moved up further north to Changchun, where we shot all the palace sequences and some other scenes up there. So there were actually 3 decent-sized moves of the unit with all the equipment. This is a shot on location. This is all shot for real. It was all shot in sequence, in continuity order, in the station and rooms of the station here. So none of this is built at all. This is all real set, this first location. And later on, the studio set, there was the studio set of the prison rooms, but these were shot for real.
I remember seeing the film at the premiere in London, sitting between Prince Charles and the Princess Diana. And I remember her being very shocked by the blood in the basin. So I knew that a few seconds later there was another shot with the blood. And when it came, just a second earlier, I put my hand in front of Princess Diana's eyes in order to prevent the next shock. We were really trying to be accurate. We didn't want the sinologists to come to us saying, here you made a mistake. We wanted that when we were doing a mistake, that it didn't have to be a mistake, but it was a choice of being imaginative or inventing something. Like there were no proofs that Puyi tried to kill himself, but it is something that in his fantasy he has done. We moved toward that because it was good for the dramatic values of the film.
Mama.
Look at her eyes here. Once in a rehearsal, she did that expression, and we had to shoot it many, many times. She couldn't redo it, and I wanted absolutely to have these white eyes. I thought that this were expressing her feeling better than anything else.
This character
The head of the Imperial Guards,
is played by the Chinese director Chen Kai-ge.
one of my favorite Chinese directors.
And the long living, the Empress Dowager commands, Aisin Joro Puyi.
And this is a set that again was built for real. This set was built on the backlot of Peking Studios, and this was a real set. This was made of wood and stone, and you could walk around it and you could walk up it, and I'm sure it's still standing now today. It was a very interesting way of working. The look was better, of course. It all looked good, and sounded good, and it was all. So I was very happy with that. Very happy with that side of it. This is Amo, which means nurse in Chinese.
Amo, I'm giving you my son. My son is your son.
Quick!
So the idea was to try to start from the beginning. In fact, it is the way we shot The Last Emperor. We remained the first 9 weeks of shooting within the Forbidden City.
I want to go home.
For a while, it was a bit difficult for me. The idea of being inside that kind of fantastic prison. The first yellow hats in my life. I didn't know I would have done a movie about Tibetan Buddhists a few years later. It was a prison for Puyi, and it's a kind of Disneyland for the almost 30,000 tourists that go every day to visit it. I remember that for the first 9 weeks, I was very anxious about being inside the labyrinth without having a clue, not even a clue of how to find the exit. And I didn't know why. And I think I discovered it day after day, shooting all the part which is about Puyi little baby, and then Puyi growing up.
Now this set here, which was a great invention of Nando Scarfiotti, which was the Empress Dowager's bedroom, Sushi. And this is the scene when the baby emperor is presented by his father, Prince Chun, played by a noted photographer, Basil Pao, who is a noted photographer, and he's in that scene. He took the photographs, a lot of the stills, and he also played Prince Chun. And this set was built and is in the Peking studio, built on a mud floor. And this was all built, this particular scene, this particular set. And the costumes are completely extraordinary and magnificent. Everything made, the headdresses were made out of hair, human hair. The turtle was there in the bowl. All these exotic jewelries, nail jewelry, hair jewelry, costumes. When you look at them closely, it's exceptional. When you look at Sushi's costume, the Empress Dowager's costume, a very celebrated Hong Kong actress played this part of Sushi.
Men, you know, are not allowed in the Forbidden City after dark. Even little men like you. The only man who can live here is the Emperor.
Little by little, I started to understand that the secret of the Forbidden City was that everywhere, everything had to remind to the figure of the emperor. The poor turtle has 130 years.
That's a real turtle which was on loan from the zoo. It was returned to the zoo later that day.
And it came in a basin full of water. It was very hot the moment the poor turtle was moved to Beijing. Turtle represent longevity in Chinese symbolism.
They're all waiting for me to die.
There were and there are thrones everywhere. Thrones where the emperor never sat, where the emperor will never sit. They were just put there to remind you about this kind of sacred figure. The emperor in China is called the Son of Heaven.
You will be the Son of Heaven.
The emperor of the 10,000 years. It's a figure that has kept together the country. And I'm not saying something new when I say that Mao Zedong was an emperor. These were soldiers from... I still feel very embarrassed about this scene because these were soldiers from the Red Army, and I didn't know at all how Tibetans would move in an occasion like that. I wanted, in contrast, because we having the dead empress there, I wanted these priests, these lamas, to be very dynamic. But now I'm very embarrassed to see how clumsy they are in their dance. This is called the Hall of Supreme Harmony. And in front of it you have the courtyard of Supreme Harmony.
It's the most precious building you can imagine, built of wood, and it's like a tinderbox, and that we got into film there I think was fantastic. And without filming in those places, the film would never have felt the same as this. We maybe took in a couple of props like the seal and the people in costume, but there were no lights in there, and it was as the hall is now, identical today. And maybe a golden cushion was put on the throne, maybe a couple of little weeny things like that. But we were in there a very short time. The scene was shot with a steady cam, without dollies inside.
Shh, shh. And I was very moved when I found out that what is called the imperial yellow is very similar to the color of my hometown, Parma. The imperial yellow, where the little Puyi is kind of running into, is exactly like Parma yellow. I wanted him to disappear into this kind of yellow, dreaming too. It was a bit like being born as the emperor. It's like if the Supreme Harmony Hall was giving birth to a child, and this child was the emperor.
This main set, they wanted to get us out of fast because this is the main tourist attraction in China, and they didn't want to close it down for us. And, funny story surrounding this, during the shooting, the scene, the Queen of England was in Peking making a visit, and she wanted to come to here, but we were in there filming, and that never happened. They couldn't come in, so Chinese authorities told us how lucky we were to be there. This scene was pretty nerve-wracking to put together, and it must have been very nerve-wracking to shoot it, because it's a composite scene of you've got a young boy to act in front of all those people, and it was very, very, I'm sure, very awesome for him as well as for everybody else. And there was a finite time. A day like this was a very expensive day. You don't want to do it more than once, it was to bring all those people back to do all that. It was very, very expensive. This is probably the most expensive day of filming that I've ever been involved with. I think we'd filmed the top piece first. A piece of it we filmed without the crowd, but a lot of it was filmed with all the crowd there. And that was, to organize it all correctly.
He is my friend, Your Majesty. Safe and warm under my arm. Kept me company on the long journey here.
Well, there were 3,000 extras all around. In that scene, I think there were, Jacob, well over 1,000 people there. No, many more than 1,000 people there.
Now he can be the Emperor's cricket.
I think it was something like 1700. I know when I got there the morning of the shooting, I was very, very nervous. I saw all these extras and I was terrified. I never had so many extras in any of the movies I've done before. And I kind of disappeared. They couldn't find me anymore. I was hiding in my caravan. And I locked the door, and Jeremy Thomas, the producer, started to knock the door and telling me, "We know you're there, open the door, come on, come on." I wanted to disappear. Then a little sip of scotch.
Your Majesty, your Emperor Boss is ready.
I don't like bombs. I don't like bombs. I don't like bombs.
That is an homage to La prise de pouvoir of Louis XIV, Louis XIV, by Rossellini, where the Cardinal Mazarin in English, the doctors smell his stool and they say there is nothing to do anymore.
I can do anything I want.
Of course, Your Majesty. Anything you want. You are the Lord of 10,000 years.
We had this designer, Nando Scarfiotti, and he was very, very good at designing the film in terms of getting the look, wonderful look, using all the fantastic motifs from China. The costumes were in harmony with that. And, for example, if you look at the costumes of the eunuchs, mixed with the look of the film and the calligraphy and the windows, and it's just a very, very strong and exotic look to it. In a way, even science fiction to look at, because it is so strong. And in fact, when you look at characters out of Star Wars, or people who live in those places which are not the people from the actual space control, they always have this sort of look of this to me.
Once upon a time, there was a great tree.
In fact, the Emperor of China, even as a child, wasn't less powerful of Louis XIV, Louis XIV.
We're back in the train station, and this is the wonderful structure that was made of getting able to get the story, to boost the story along. So you've got the baby, and you've got that age of emperor, and you've got the first emperor, Baby Wu, who was, I don't know, 7 years old or 6 years old, I forgot how old he was. And then you come back to the prison, now you come back to the station, and then you move forward to the prison camp, where he's going to go to the prison camp, because he's on the way there. When they're on the way in the railway station, they're prisoners. They come off the train as prisoners. And in another sort of film, they might have been gunned down right at that moment, because they are, if you've seen that film many times, when they come out of the cattle trucks and they get killed, Puyi was kept and taken to a prison camp of a re-education and of camp, and then the scene of the prisoners and starting the slow process of realization of their crimes.
I repeat, prisoners going to their cells will walk with their heads bowed. Keep your eyes on the ground, no looking forward or to the side.
Some of this set is Rome, built interiors in Rome. These scenes interior of the prison here were shot in Rome. Some of these scenes were shot in Rome, and some of them were shot in China.
Puyi.
And then there were two actors who we had to get different ages.
To meet you,
We have to find
Your Majesty.
Puyi and Puyi at these various ages, because
Also,
okay,
your
we only
mother
see
has arrived.
Puyi, who's the eldest brother.
You
And
have
in the
not
next
seen
time
your
we
mother
see
for
the
many
next age of
years, Your
Puyi,
Majesty.
which is with an actor called Tiger. He has got a brother. We see the brother there, Puyi, who eventually became the technical advisor of the film, who was still married to a Japanese royal family princess.
He is young, Your Majesty.
And then we first see these people, and it was incredible when we made the film to actually see the person who is now appearing in the scene as Puyi, Puyi's brother.
His Excellency
There he was
Puyi.
with us when we were making the film. Many times he came to the set. Puyi was different to Puyi, but he still was with him when they went to the prison. He was with Puyi. He was there. He was absorbed into, and they changed, but they didn't kill them. They didn't kill, as in other coup. There would be a mass killing of the previous, but there was like some sort of respect for ancestors in the way, and for the previous. That they thought, well, let's try and one, that, and two, let's have this as an example of what can happen if an emperor can become a citizen. Can we change a man? So maybe he was protected also by tradition. He was the emperor after all, and you can still see in the film a basic respect for him, apart from probably his interrogators. There was still a respect around him, which had to be taken out of the people around him as well, because they wanted the people around him to change with him.
Papa!
See it!
mean, all this was very difficult to make, these scenes, because everything had to be made. All the props. To make all these palanquins and to make all the... There were very few existing, and we had to make them. All the feathers and gold gilt work, that was all done by artisans for the movie. Probably began about 6 months before the film started.
I'm not allowed to look at the Emperor. I'm too important. Is it true that you can do whatever you want?
Of course I can. If I am naughty, someone else is punished. One of them.
Yeah, there have been lots of design drawings done, and lots of storyboards done. Not storyboards really Bernardo to shoot, because he doesn't really shoot with a storyboard, but it would have been done for this design and the set of the film.
I think it's a way of writing with the camera. I don't really know exactly while I'm shooting the way I will edit it. But in fact, I know it unconsciously. Very much like when you write a poem. I think that what I call movie writing, it's much closer to writing in poetry than writing in prose.
And then the film opens up and you see the size of the Forbidden City, how big it is. It is just a gigantic space. I mean, you never really get a down shot on it from above, but if you looked at it, it would be enormous. And you get into the size of it when you see them in these various courtyards that they walk around in and play in, the kids. And then places like the Summer Palace. We shot at the Summer Palace. There's a scene which is set on a lake, there were lakes inside the Forbidden City at the time, but they were all in disrepair. So we went and filmed it at the Summer Palace, a bit outside of Peking. So, we stayed within the environs of Peking, making people think that everything was in the Forbidden City. But of course, some scenes were taken and we interpreted that would be the Forbidden City, because it would have been accurate. But the piece of the Forbidden City, which is so large, a lot of it is not restored, and a lot of it's in just too much disrepair to use. The scene that we hear here is the music recorded by Kong Su. It's the Chinese court music. This music is a piece of Kong Su's music.
It was never said, I think it was never witnessed by anybody about the sexuality of the last emperor. There were rumors that he was homosexual. The fact that he has been living all his adolescence, his youth, his childhood with eunuchs made the kind of obvious thing that was not very familiar with women. But I didn't want to go to the point of doing revelation about the secret of the alcove of the emperor. It seemed to me that I would have ended in kind of royal and imperial gossips that I really wasn't interested about. I prefer to leave everything a bit underground, hidden.
No, it is not. We say it is. Only the Emperor can wear that yellow. Take it off. No. Take it off. No, and you're not the Emperor anymore. There is a new Emperor now.
These are the scenes when they're in this classroom, and I believe these scenes were shot in Peking. It's hard because some of the scenes were shot in Peking, in the interiors of the palace, and some of them we shot in Rome, in Cinecittà.
It happened to me to speak what was considered to be the last eunuch. which was alive still when we shot the movie in Beijing. And he was very, very young when his family, from the region of the Shantung, and many of the eunuchs were coming from the region of the Shantung, decided to make him a eunuch. The problem is that a few months after this drastic decision of his family, the boy discovered that China has gone from the empire to a republic. And one of the first things that the Sun Yat-sen, the father of the Chinese Republic, did was to eliminate and to prohibit the eunuchs, because there was no more royal family, and because it was one of the signs, first sign of democracy in the country. So this boy, after he has been, let's say, castrated, discovered that it was probably for nothing, because no more eunuchs in the Forbidden City. In fact, other eunuchs from the same area, born in the same area in Shantung, found a way to let him in, because the emperor didn't know it. China was a republic. He didn't know it because life in the Forbidden City was going on like before. So this, well known in Beijing as the last eunuch, told me that Puyi was more or less his age. When he found out that, in fact, he was not an emperor but a prisoner, he started to become very, very nasty. And it was like aiming at him with a gun and pretending to shoot him, and then he would find out that the gun was unloaded. But doing this kind of nasty tricks. And you know, it's very difficult when you have to deal with the historical figures. And you listen so many different things. Many things are lies, you have to know that. Many things have been made up by people who who desired to be more involved, so that to make up stories.
Inside the Forbidden City, but not outside.
I do not understand.
Outside China is now a republic with a president.
History is one of the dramatic personae of the film. I mean, the historical arc of the film was one of the elements of the drama that draws the story along, the history of wars and nations. Puyi bobs along in that and comes out the other end alive. The long version of the film has some of these scenes are a bit extended, and they give a bit more information about the history, because it's very hard in a film to explain all the history. But you hope that some washes off, because this is really principally the story of the last emperor and his story. And he glides through history. And the time where this is set, Puyi is already the imperial family. It's already narrowing down. Their life is narrowing down. Now outside, a whole load of things are happening. And that you can see that things are happening outside of the imperial family that is not under the imperial will.
I shoot a lot from real location, more than build-up sets. Because in real places, these walls, the spaces, have absorbed in the times that passed, in the years that passed, kind of human presence. There are stories hidden in those walls. So you have to find a way to become part of it with your camera and to accept certain limits which become richness.
It's so big, that the Forbidden City, that there's whole areas of it that we could film in, large courtyards with great buildings in it, which have never been, but people have never even seen. And there's still now today, there's many, many rooms of that place that nobody's been into for many, many years. It's a big still undiscovered rooms and places in the Forbidden City that are not open. This courtyard that you're seeing now, I don't think that was open to the public because you can see there's grass growing all over it. The songs are the songs that would have been sung at the time. The Easter's Red and other well-known classics of the period. And it gives a very strong flavour, the art, or the strong, vivid painting, and that music has a very strong feeling. And later in the film, we're going to come to a scene which is shot within sight in Tiananmen Square, where later there would be student uprisings and suppression. We recreated Red Guards within sight of Mao's mausoleum, and it was extraordinary how times have changed, because today you couldn't possibly do that. But we were able to close down streets and put hundreds of Red Guards on the streets. I mean, a few hundred Red Guards we dressed and found badges. Strangely, it was very difficult. It's more easy to find a Mao badge outside of China than in China. Because if they're in China, they're all hidden. They were all hidden. They were not there at the time. We tried to find the costumes and the period. We couldn't find stuff there. And many of the kids who appeared in that scene had no idea.
We believe that the only way to change is to discover the truth and look at it in the face. That is why you are here.
In this scene, the governor of the prison, he opens Reginald Johnson's book, which is also incredible information for the re-education process of Puyi. They have the book, which is called Twilight in the Forbidden City, which was the story about Twilight in the Forbidden City. And it's a fantastic book, and of course after a fantastically interesting book in context of this film, because you read the story of Peter O'Toole, his own autobiography, which was very rich about what he came from and what he came to do this. And there were many, many books have been written about Puyi, but that was, of course, a first-hand account of what happened. And in that book, written by Johnson, of course, there were many indictments of Puyi, not that he was trying to write them at the time like that, but he could take them out and quote about how he lived his life and what his values were.
The era of the warlords had begun. By May 1919, when I received my appointment, China was in turmoil.
Here is the first appearance of Peter O'Toole, who's coming through already large protests outside the Forbidden City of political protests which have started, and sloganism.
With Peter O'Toole, we started to shoot in the Forbidden City when he has his appointment with the Emperor. And that was not in total chronology, but that's the way it went. And I remember Peter arriving on the set with his tails, with his top hat, just mixing up with the crew who didn't realize it was Peter O'Toole. And after a while, I think Serena Canevari, my second assistant, raised her voice and said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to a new actor in the film. Today, for you, Peter O'Toole. And there was a great applause. Everybody was very, very excited to see Lawrence of Arabia actually in China. We actually shot the arrival of Peter O'Toole, Reginald Fleming Johnston in the Forbidden City, and I think it's in the long version.
We needed to find somebody who could lend a sort of gravitas and a convincing tutorly attitude in a sort of kind and disciplinarian way. And Peter O'Toole was we were thrilled when he agreed to come and spend that time in China with us. And he thoroughly enjoyed his experience in China and travelled extensively after the film was finished. He stayed there for a number of months. He travelled the road of Confucius, this road, and he travelled to many places on train, looking at things, and he got very, very interested in Chinese history and culture.
Now we will go to school.
And now this is the next time we see the next age of the emperor. This is this scene here. His name is Wu Tao, and he was from Switzerland. And we found, our casting process was enormous because we had to find 4 ages of Puyi, 3 ages of Puche, and it was quite a challenge to get the look and English speaking, and the look the same, similar, and because we had John Lone as the final look of the adult Puyi, and then we had to find that, and that was a challenge, and I think that it was very, very well integrated. I think that Bernardo integrated that very well into the movement through the film, because you can't really, unless you look at it so closely, tell when they change, because they're sort of like there's a gap, and you come back to them a little bit later in the story, and you see the change, and they've just grown up.
A gentleman. Are you a gentleman?
The attitude of Johnston wasn't at all kind of colonialistic attitude like the one of many of the foreigners getting into China, into Beijing. He was really in love with Chinese culture. He was a fantastic Confucian scholar. He knew Confucius better than the Chinese, and that's why he was very much admired by the Chinese. When he was young, he was, I'm talking about 1904 or 5, he was almost sure to become the governor of Hong Kong. But at the last minute, he wasn't chosen because the British authorities found out that he wrote under a fake name a booklet against missionaries who were trying to corrupt with the Christian religion the purity of the Chinese culture. He had done it under a Chinese name, I think, and they found it out, and he lost his nomination.
I think your mouse is trying to escape, Your Majesty.
So the last emperor, or the imperial prisoner, started to fall in love with the West. I think he did it also through these magazines that Johnston was bringing to him, and some books, literature. And he became also a film buff. He had a screening room in the Forbidden City, and he was in love with Harold Lloyd.
The eunuch who plays the official food taster. He was somebody who was an interpreter, and Bernardo thought that he had an incredible look and incredible face, and he does. And he was somebody who was easy to work with because he understood the direction, and he was perfect. So he was not an actor. And there's some other people in the movie who were people who worked as production managers or people who worked with us, and then Bernardo decided that they were the people who would look good.
This poor imperial taster.
Every day, like theater.
They had to be changed very often.
And there was a casting director in charge of it, one casting director and many other casting directors, and then there was a dialogue coach, a well-known dialogue coach who worked on trying to unify the accents of the people. There was a lot of work done to try and get everything as similar as we could, so that it sounded good.
Lots of our land in Manchuria. I'm a Manchurian. Even after the Republic, it's still my country.
There was a dialogue coach on set all the time, listening, and trying to, called Constantine Gregory. He also plays a part of the oculist as an actor who specialises in voice and works with another great dialogue coach called Cicely Berry, who was from the National Theatre, and she did a lot of work on the dialogue, the sound of the dialogue, the sound of how it all worked together.
The natural, biological actor for Johnston was Sean Connery, who is really from Scotland. But Sean was in some way insecure. I remember meeting him. He's a very, very wonderful person. He's a great actor. But he discouraged me from taking him. So I decided to pass on, and the other English actor, because it was needed, the English actor was Peter O'Toole, same age, more or less, of Sean. And in fact, Sean is Scottish, Peter is Irish. But for Peter was, in a way, funnier to play a Scottish character. I think he had never done it before, and I think he had a lot of fun. And especially, he became, like Johnston, an impeccable Confucian. He read about Reginald Johnston. He discovered that he was a scholar. He discovered how much he liked, how much he knew about Confucius, and he started to read Confucius. And he was caught.
My lord. I want to see the City of Sound.
We discussed a bit about the character of Johnston, but then I think it was a complete creation of Peter. And I liked it so much, I didn't want to change anything.
The rehearsals are done in the way that the scene is rehearsed with the actors and blocking the scene out and working out how the scene's going to move. And then the other part of the work is to set up the shot in terms of the camera. So it's a combination of the two. There's not a lot of rehearsal in terms of known as like actors' workshop rehearsal, but there's a lot of thinking about how the scenes are going to be, and then the rehearsal will be, between the movement of the camera and the movement of the actors, which is a sort of key area of rehearsal for Bernardo. And composing the shot and building the shot up. Everybody makes films in different ways, and he's very confident in the way that he wants to shoot the scene. He knows how he wants to do it once he's seen everybody walk the scene through, and that was why we managed to make the film in a good time.
I think that in this scene there is something to do with Puyi's sexuality. I think that what the scene shows is that Puyi loves to be touched, but he loves to be touched by hands who belong to mysterious character. In fact, who belongs to characters he can't recognize. Like if he wanted to have a kind of anonymous sexuality, or let's put it like that. He likes not to know with whom he's having sex. And it's a bit what happened also in the scene with the two wives.
Bicycles are bad for you.
Bad for you, nonsense.
Well, here, Storaro and Bertolucci's relationship goes back many times, many years, aeons, and that this is the first film I worked with him, and of course it's made with a big thought of the lighting and the drama, and that is the lighting, the look of the light is something which is sort of integral to the drama of the film, And Bernardo and Vittorio at that time were working very closely on that ideology of light and the drama. It's mainly done with colours, with the colour of the scene, the feeling, the intensity of the colour of the scene, and how that colour is to do with the drama going on in people's heads. It's sort of a private alchemy. Between director and the cameraman, there is an alchemy, which is, what is intended in how the film should look and feel, and there's a very strong look and feel in this film, and there was the colour, obviously, of the Forbidden City is a strong feeling, an emotion. The red, it's a strong emotion, and the colours played an important part in accentuating the colours and how they were portrayed.
The decadence is not a moral fact. You can see it on the walls. The colors are faded, the porcelain is half broken, and the seaweeds have invaded every possible corner.
Chinkager again. He's the guy who picks up Puyi at the beginning, and he's the head of the Imperial Guard, and now he's gardening him. Chinkager is a very celebrated Chinese New Wave director. Well, today he's Old Wave, but at the time he was a New Wave director who had made The Good Earth. And since then he's made many famous films. And check him up on IMDb, but you'll see some films of your favourites. And he was playing as an actor for Bernardo and enjoyed being on the set, watching the shooting, and he played the part, and he's very, very handsome.
Now, it was difficult to get the permission to enter. Not even the Chinese knew why it was difficult, but there was a big problem. And finally we entered there, and they would let us shoot. They would give us the needed time.
He can't get in. I want to go out. I want to go out. And finally, the thing that he loves the most. He has to show it. He has to show. It's absolutely a tragic thing that his most precious object he has to destroy, because he just can't get out of that place. He wants to get out. The film came from Emperor Citizen Valley Vendar. That is the source of the movie, period. You showed a shot of Twilight and the Forbidden City, but they're all over the book. It's all in the book. The story, everything is in the book, including Puyi going on the roof, with Reginald Johnson below, and the various things that happened. That's in the book of Livendar. But we all, everybody who, it's good to read surrounding material of a subject when you're trying to make a film like this. You want to have all the depth you can. And this is very interesting, this scene here, which is shot for real, in the Forbidden City, on the rooftops. And when we realise that the Emperor needs glasses, and of course, that's glasses come into play there. Because he was very, very blind, and they didn't really understand until this time that Reginald Johnson insisted that he have glasses, but they didn't want to agree that the Emperor wasn't perfect, so they had been resistant to that time to give him any glasses, but in fact he'd been unable to be a good student because he couldn't see anything.
Sir? Give me your hand, sir.
I remember Mark Peploe telling me that he had read in the Johnston book how Johnston found out that Puyi was short-sighted. And I found that very poetic. One of the reasons why Puyi was so affectionate to Johnston is that Johnston opened his eyes, in the sense that symbolically discovering about the fact that he's short-sighted and forcing the court to accept that the emperor would wear spectacles was for Puyi a great proof of love,
Like Harold's life.
because he started with the spectacles to see better. And I think that
Cannot be allowed.
Times have changed.
everybody was formally very respectful, but in fact it was all kind of pure form. And in fact they never felt really affection from the people. Nobody was giving any proofs of love,
If His Majesty doesn't get spectacles, Johnston.
apart from Johnston.
could
That's
lose
why
his
he felt so close to Johnston.
Your Majesty.
If the Emperor does not get spectacles, I will resign.
I don't remember seeing a lot of books about Puyi, apart from Emperor to Citizen. They were starting to be. I just remember that in the early 80s or late 70s, before we decided to do the film with Mark and Jeremy, we found out maybe 2 or 3 books, no more than that. Of course, every single writer of a book about Puyi was thinking of being stolen. But in fact, I think that we used much more the information that we were able to collect firsthand in China. Some of the books about Puyi were based on legends, not on a very accurate research. So we used a bit the official one, and then in general we were using first-hand informations that we got in our trips to Beijing. And we were very keen in trying to have the level, the balance between everything, and in fact are very little things that we invented. We wanted to be balanced with what happened for real. Before shooting, the last period of pre-production in Beijing, 3 or 4 months, I must say, I think. April, May, June, July, we were all there with James Hutchison, the costume designer, Nando Scarfiotti, production designer, and at the end with Vittorio Storaro, director of photography. We were all very, very I started to feel, okay, I maybe know a little bit more than 2 years ago the culture and the history and the people I'm doing a movie about. But what about the cinema, the Chinese cinema? So I looked here and there, and I found out that there was a kind of new wave, a Chinese new wave, blossomed after the end of Cultural Revolution. They were all working in Xi'an. The Xi'an studios were producing movies of young directors. So one day I was able to gather them together, and that's the first time I met with Chen Kai-ge, with Zhang Yimou, directors who few years later would have become very famous around the world. And Chiang Kai-ge was also acting in the film. I decided that he would have been the chief of the Imperial Guards, who are in fact kidnapping a little boy from his mother and taking him to the Forbidden City in front of the Dowager Empress, who will make him the new emperor. So I thought it was nice to have a new young film director, a director who's doing a new kind of movies in China, to be the one who was bringing the baby to its new destiny. Chiang Kai-ge and Zhang Yimou always told me that the last emperor was very important to them. They were feeling, before the last emperor, that they were condemned to do kind of movies a bit as the Soviet models of neorealism. And the last emperor opened their eyes on the fact they could have shot movies about their past, about how incredibly sophisticated was China before, in the past, even before communism. And in fact, I remember that one of Chiang Kai-ge's movie, Farewell My Concubine, was kind of obviously inspired.
We were casting all over the world, and we had characters to be cast who spoke English, who were believable in the part, with excellent actors, and then we couldn't find it. We had to cast non-actors in some roles. The casting was not done for the stars. There weren't any stars that were, we couldn't put Bruce Lee in the film, and there weren't any stars who were significant in terms of fighting the film itself, the story of the film meant it. So we just had to find the best possible actors. And John Lone was a wonderful actor. He came to the surface in our casting of that role. And we looked all over the world, and John Lone was there, and John Lone was the absolutely wonderful emperor. And he was wonderful in the role, and he worked incredibly hard, and he had a fantastic disciplines because he came from Peking theatre and been a Peking opera.
His Majesty thinking?
I was thinking, if I was a real emperor, I would become the ruler of
And then
China.
casting the empress was a lot of the empress's sister. It was, they were the other wife of Puyi, not the empress's sister, his other concubine. Vivian was Joan Chen also already was a big star. In fact, China's biggest star, female star. And we looked at a lot of actors, and she could speak some English, and she was beautiful. And it was absolutely, she was absolutely the perfect empress. So, the people come, you look at hundreds of people, and then people just, come to the surface or inhabit the role. And it was just a long, arduous process, but it was ultimately very rewarding.
Will the Emperor take Guan Yun with him? Perhaps he would like to see my face before he decides.
Yes, the emperor would like to see the face of the empress.
I think she got married in Hong Kong, and then she moved to US. And she had done a part in an American movie. I don't remember what it was. But she's an extremely fine actress. Very, very subtle. And, one of these miracles where when you see somebody able to conjugate the East with the West, to create for your camera a kind of fusion between the East and the West. And she is one of those. She has become a film director now.
I also had a tutor like Mr. Johnston.
Miss Windsor. She's American.
They start to kiss each other, and here you have hands coming in, so there are presence there.
Miss Windsor taught me how to do the dance of the quickstep.
I remember having seen many erotic illustration, Chinese erotic illustration.
Will you teach me?
And, of course, there were the boy and the girl, the man and the woman, the male and the female, and always a third presence, a third kind of attendant, helping the lovers in their positions. That's why I like to keep these presences in the shade, somewhere hidden during the meeting between the emperor and the empress. They are somewhere, we don't know where, but we can feel that there is somebody there. It's a fact that the empress was a bit older than Puyi, and I liked for the scene of the first wedding night to have this age difference to underline the age difference, to make it
If Your Majesty
even
thinks
bigger than what it was.
it is old-fashioned.
I wanted
to
the
let
young
the realm
emperor
intertwine with a
to have
stranger.
a real initiation.
We can be like a modern couple.
And that's why I felt that it would have been
A modern couple?
better if the age difference was more important than in reality.
I've never been back to Peking because I had the opportunity to go back a few times. But when you make a film and the experience is so sublime like that, you don't want to go back and spoil it unless you have to go back for a reason, because when you make films in places and you have this fantastic memory of it, it's hard to go back there and have improve that memory, because how could I go back to Peking and top what I did, what I've done there before? It would just be, I go, other parts of China. I mean, I've been not back to Peking. I've been to other parts of China since the last emperor, but I haven't been back to Peking. But I'm sure one day I'll go back.
Open the door.
A film director who I know and think has got a lot of good ideas on how everything works, told me that he'd never managed to go back to a film location which he'd made, and he'd worked all over the world, and get a satisfying experience again out of that place.
Write it.
Rick Young was an Canadian actor who lived in London, and when we were looking for the chief interrogator, we were looking for an actor very precise, somebody who had a sort of an acting strength, and he was the one who came to the fore. Bernardo saw his work, and cast Rick Young, and I have to say, he really acquitted himself well in the film, and is very, very strong.
Toothpaste and water tap. The toothpaste prisoner needs to be squeezed every now and then, or else he forgets to keep confessing.
I found that Rick Young was, in some way, very similar to the young Mao Zedong. He looked very much like Mao. And I like that.
Understand me? Good. Then we'll begin. Why do you think you're in here, 981?
I am accused of being a traitor, a collaborator, and a counter-revolutionary.
It is not an accusation. You are a traitor, you are a collaborator, and you are a counter-revolutionary. Did you write this? And you call it a confession? This is nothing but a list of dates. A child's fairy tale.
So here we are with two different governors of the prison. The guy who will really be very close to Puyi, the guy will try to
I do not understand.
correct
We
Puyi.
already know everything about you.
He goes behind Puyi, a bit like a shrink with his patient. That's why I liked him to be always sitting in the back. Puyi. Like if it would have been easier for Puyi to confess, to say things, to be sincere.
Cut off my cue.
Your Majesty, please.
Materials and textures and fabrics and tactile sensuousness is an element of what is in Bertolucci's films. As an outsider looking at them, that is in the films a lot, you know. And this is just a sort of very, very great idea.
It is heavy.
The emperor before me was murdered because he wanted to reform the empire. Is that not so, Mr. Johnston?
Yes, Your Majesty. Probably.
Well, let us see if they will kill me for reforming the Forbidden City. Lord Chamberlain, I'm appointing Mr. Johnston's friend, the poet and scholar Chen Xiaoshu, to be the new Lord Chamberlain. I want him to supervise a detailed inventory of the imperial storerooms so that we can learn exactly how much has been stolen.
I don't remember how the scene between the emperor and
The Forbidden City had become a
the
theater
two
without an
wives
audience.
evolved.
So why did the
I mean, I don't remember how much of it was in the screenplay.
steal the scenery?
I think there was a lot. But there is always a kind of, in every scene, in every moment of a screenplay, there are these kind of dark corners where you can sneak in and use them on everything that is a very recent inspiration. You know, when I go to the set in the morning, I know the scene I have to shoot. I read it the night before. And first of all, I want to feel the atmosphere, if it is a room, in the room, if it is a square, in the square, if it is a street, a field, whatever. And I start to imagine the characters moving that space. The relationship with the space for me is as important as the relationship with the actors and the characters. There is always a lot which is proposed, in some way offered by the reality around you. For example, if one of the actors had a difficult night and comes to work in the morning with an hangover and a devastated face, instead of covering it with makeup, I prefer to use that kind of face. So the characters are, that was an example, a bit simplistic, but just to show you how I'm ready to take the party of reality, to be ready to modify what it was written. Let's admit it, the people in front of the camera are giving their body, their faces, their flesh to the movie. And these are the real people. So I try to make a fusion between what is written in the page and the reality in front of the camera. That's why very often I feel that while I'm telling a fictional story, at the same time I'm doing a kind of documentary on the people in front of me. And in fact, how do I choose my actors? Many times, just following this curiosity I have. If I feel curious on somebody, if I feel that I want to investigate, to explore somebody I'm meeting, this is a good reason enough to choose this person. It means this person has secrets that will become in some kind the dynamic into the characters that will make alive the characters which were literary ghosts on the pages. It is chance. It's also a way of stealing from the real, from the reality, in order to make richer what it was written. And it was probably perfect on the page, but now that you pass into the action, you have to give something more. In every stage of the production of a film, there has to be a new enrichment. There was a kind of storeroom where all the eunuchs put their genitals in kind of little jars. And when Puyi decides to fire the eunuchs, who had become like parasites around him, and their only energy was spent in stealing and selling all the treasure of the court. There is something fair that he has to do, which is to give the eunuchs the chance of having their little jars back. Because in China, when you die, you have to be buried as a whole. And without the little jar, the eunuchs will never find the eternal peace. When you look at Puyi,
well,
you see somebody with a gift of being so light that he becomes almost like a cork floating on the liquid surface of history and never sinking. That was his gift. But everything in his life is always connected with his childhood, so in a way abused, been taken away from his mom, being given this kind of omnipotence, and then losing it, and then having it back. It's a hell of a life. Of course, Puyi is somebody who never had the courage or the desire to look the truth on in the face. He was always hiding behind somebody explaining him what to do, etc. I think that in 1924, when the Christian general fires Puyi from the Forbidden City, you can see exactly the two sides of his nature. He's asked to abandon the royal palace. He's fired. Meantime, that moment means that he will be able to see the world around the royal palace, to see Beijing, to see China, maybe to go to the West. And he has this great chance in front of him. Meantime, it's to leave that place that in Mandarin sounds, the Forbidden City sounds like cocoon, which is very much like a cocoon, where he's been living protected, preserved from any kind of danger all his life.
I always thought I hated it here. Now I'm afraid to leave. Do you think they will kill me?
You must do as they say, Your Majesty. While I try to reach the British Embassy, they will give you asylum there. I'm sure they will. Chang, take my car to the South Gate. I want you to drive His Majesty.
You know, in this film, the door is always the limit. The emperor can't go beyond. So this is the limits of his world. The door is very important. So in this film, door opens just once in this film, when the emperor leaves the Forbidden City to establish Manchukuo. That's the kind of peak of this film to me. So I have a special hit on this door. The genius cinematographer Vittorio Storaro was working on the lighting design for 3 hours here and there. He was, just flying on the set. Then finally, he got satisfaction, so he called Bernardo to check about the design.
Please, Your Majesty.
Bernardo checked through the finder, and he shouted, he yelled at Vittorio, "Change it! I hate it! Change it!" that's what Bernardo is. So Vittorio Storaro, the genius, he got I think three Academy Awards, right? Started changing, and Jeremy was like, oh my God, because on that particular day we had I think 25 horses, 15 camels, and 250 extras waiting for till Vittorio finishes the work. And so just by watching through the finder for a second, Jeremy lost probably, I don't know, $1 million, or I don't know, something like that.
Because I am Manchurian. There was even an anti-Manchurian league who wanted to assassinate
With Storaro, we have a very, very long story. He was a focus puller when I shot Before the Revolution. With the director of the photography was Aldo Scavarda, the guy who just 2 or 3 years earlier had done L'Avventura by Antonioni. It was a fantastic work. Then I met Vittorio again at the time of Spider Stratagem, 1969. And since we worked together every time we could, we got to a point that we really didn't have to talk a lot. We read the screenplay together, and I try to explain scene after scene what I feel about the light and the colors. But in fact, being then on the set, many things changed, many things are altered by the reality, what's around. And so now we are so close that a look, it's enough. We don't have to spend many, many words to communicate.
Am I blue? Am I blue? Ain't these tears in my eyes telling you? Am I blue? You be too. If it's planned with your gout and fell through, was a time I was her only one, but now I'm the sad and lonely one.
Well, on all the small memories of images of the set or the time when we were shooting are still vivid, very vivid. In the beginning, we were like friends, not like the director and an actor. We were always hanging out together, and my manager, and Jeremy. So 4 gangs. Until 1 week before they shot my first scene, suddenly Bernardo said to me, "Okay, don't laugh, don't smile until shooting's over, because you are a fanatic Japanese fascist. No smile, no laugh." I tried, I tried. Amazing.
That's a great ship.
We are now in the palace in Manchuria. We're in the Manchurian. No, we're not. Sorry, rewind.
This has been shot in Italy, in a spa near Parma called Salso Maggiore. Now, the year of that building and that ballroom is exactly the same of the ballroom of the place in Tianjin, 1919, 1920.
They're in Tianjin now. They've moved to Tianjin. This is the scene which we created the scene in a combination of Roman school, and we shot in a thermal city, very famous sort of place where people took the waters, and not Montecatini, something like that, and with the interior of the Tianjin Palace and I think it was called the French Club in Tianjin, or the English Club. The life that they were having there, we created somewhere else, and it's this scene here.
She's beautiful.
Yes, very.
And who are you?
I am His Highness other wife.
His other wife?
Number 2 wife.
He had become kind of rich man in a city with a lot of Westerners. There were. Everybody was. All Western countries were in Tianjin, like they were in Shanghai, like they were in Canton, like they were in Hong Kong, doing their business. It was still very early, 1924. The Communist Party had been founded in Shanghai just recently. And in fact, in the scene of Tianjin, where he remained 3 years, the emperor, before going to Puyi, before going to Manchuria, the scene at the ballroom ends with the radio transmitting the end of the riots in Shanghai. So it's not 1924, it's more like 1927. And you hear that there's something going on. And what is going on? The revolutionary strengths are starting to show up. There was a kind of discussion, I think, between Mao and Chu Enlai.
I thought you were my secondary
Chu Enlai wanted to start the riots in Shanghai, in a kind of industrial city, while Mao has always said that the revolution had to start in the country. So let's say from the farmers, the peasants, in the direction of the urban centers. In fact, this first time, Mao was right, because the rioters, the communist, the revolutionary, were all decimated at that moment. And Chu Enlai had to flee Shanghai and reach Mao Zedong in the outskirts. You know, sometimes, especially in a movie which is superstructured like The Last Emperor, you have to get to the point when you have to feel that you and your body is the structure. You are, and your body is the structure of the film. You have to identify with the structure, because there is no other way to know where you are going. And you better write. Otherwise the movie can take directions which are totally arbitrary. But I think that the unity, the coherence, and the consistency of the film becomes the unit, the coherence, and the consistency of your body is within you, within your body and your mind and your heart and your soul, that you keep this kind of unity during the whole shoot. I felt that very much with The Last Emperor, otherwise I would have thought, oh my God, where am I going? There were so many minor little kind of both escapes and hiding place in the story of the film. But if somebody asked me if I identify with The Last Emperor like a director identifies with almost all the time with the character of its movies, I would say that I don't identify with the character as much as I identify with the whole film.
Don't you remember me? I'm dressed like a pilot, but I still can't fly. Not yet.
Eastern Jewel is a character who's a real character, and she was a a spy, and it was a very, very exotic spy. The costumes were close to accurate, and who she was very close. And she was she was a Japanese plant into their lives, who becomes very close with Puyi and his wife, the Empress. And she's played by Maggie Han, who was a very beautiful actress, and who was very, very much like Eastern Jewel.
Why are you going to Europe? The place to go is Japan. It's more fun than anywhere.
There's another movie, Eastern Jewel, who's like a Matahari of her day. She's a spy, and she moved in various circles, and she was much involved in the manipulation of Puyi. And the opium, which was the opium, the anesthetic for this life, which was a false life.
And I don't care who knows it. A spy? I work for the Japanese Special Service Bureau.
Yet another film is the story of the last Empress and her drug addiction, which was encouraged, and what happened with that happened within Puyi's life. I mean, again, that's something which is very, very difficult to cater for in one film.
And Mr. Amakasu never says hello to me. I do not trust the Japanese.
Eastern Jewel is the character that brings the modern world into the film in a way. She existed, it's a real character. She was a pilot. She loved to pilot airplanes too. And she had many lovers. One of them was a Japanese pilot with huge mustaches. And I remember that they were making love in one of these little, very primitive airplanes. That she said that in a kind of interview she did in the late 20s. She was a very transgressive character, like you can find also in, for example, in Italian fascism. I think we had great fun with James Acheson, the fantastic costume designer of The Last Emperor, in creating a character that you could find in some sophisticated recent bande dessinée comic. I think that the way James Acheson designed her costume, her look, it's like, at the end, it's a character that you could see in some sophisticated recent comic book.
A warlord working for Chiang Kai-shek. The body of the Empress.
We have the scene now. This is when Puyi wants to become a Western gentleman, and the education of Reginald Johnson has come to the fore, and he wants to be a gum-chewing Western gentleman who's going to go on an ocean liner and be a Western gentleman. After all, he is an emperor. He can do, he's still an emperor, and he's still being led to believe by the Japanese that he is an emperor, and it's a complete false feeling and a complete lack of reality in his life. And under his nose, unbeknownst to him, many things happened in Chinese history under the fact that he was a puppet emperor. He was put on the throne of Manchuria, a newly created state of Chinese people under Japanese. It was to be the breadbasket, and it was a breadbasket of an expanding country who wanted to take China. This was a move to take China this way and to have the emperor with you, rather like there was a thought that the Duke of Windsor would have been involved with any movement back to the England by a Germany, strong Germany. It's very much easier to take a people in a peaceful way with a movement behind a national leader who is in fact your puppet than it is to go and by force. So this was the movement that the Japanese were making with Puyi, and which was coming out in the confession within the prison, which was then constructed. The film was constructed this way. it was eventually coming more and more information as the film nears its climax.
And a good friend, I believe. After 28 years in China, Mr. Johnston returned to England. He became a professor of Oriental Studies at London University, and he wrote a book. It is called Twilight in the Forbidden City, and it is dedicated to you.
So there we are in Tianjin. So we're now in Tianjin, and this is a scene when Puyi says goodbye to Johnson, and it's very sad. Johnson is leaving, and this scene is set in Tianjin, but we shot this in Dalian, which is this northern port, and we had to get a boat in, period boat in, get the period cars there. We had to find a place because everywhere's changed it so much. When you try to create the past, you often have to move to somewhere which is in the past. For example, if you want to recreate an old place, you have to go to a place where life has not moved as fast. So if you want to recreate it like in old Madrid, you go to South America. I mean, if you want to recreate an old English town of a certain period, you go to New Zealand. You go to somewhere where time moves at a different pace. So when we were in China, Tianjin is a major, it's like a skyscraper city already then. And there wasn't what we needed and what we wanted. And also it was convenient to be in this place, which was on the way to Changchun. This location was on the way. And again, the logistics of filmmaking came into it, because you have no idea, the audience has no idea, except for any people who made it and were there, what is outside of the camera frame. So as you look at this sequence in this place, which we're watching now, which is Peter O'Toole leaving, this is a departure hall of a really old departure hall in the old city, and going with a place where a boat next to a harbour. So that doesn't exist. So we found that place and we went to shoot it, and you think that you are in Tianjin because we were pretending you were in Tianjin, but in fact you were thousands of miles away. But you can believe that you're there. And it was a very beautiful hall with a very beautiful location, and to build that and to make that somewhere else would be much more expensive than to go there on the move. So the logistics of filmmaking, the physical production ideas, it was there. Everything was there. The doors were there, the old doors, the old places. We just gave it a clean up. We just washed it and cleaned it, and then we hoisted the camera, the car up with a crane, put it into that place which normally you could only walk in, and drove the car down. And then when we finished, the car was craned out, and on the wiser. It's a magic film. All the picture cars were brought from Italy. There were no cars that ran in China of that period. They'd long gone. They'd been melted down and made into something. There's nothing old there. There's nothing left. Everything is new is good. Old is bad, and there is very little old left. It's all new, because the whole thing of regeneration and new, out with the old, in with the new. It's very different. Whereas we like to keep old things, and even mad as it may sound, we try to keep an old car running, and so we had old cars brought in containers. For a container, we brought up every 20 cars there from Europe in working condition of the period. We needed them. What are you going to do? You're in China, there are no old cars. Where are you going to get the cars from? Certainly don't rent them from America. It would have been closer to ship them from America, but of course if we shipped them from America it would have been a lot more expensive, although it was closer. So we put them in a container, did a double rental time, and had them sent round by ship in a container with a mechanic who arrived, who was an expert in old cars. We had 2 mechanics arrive from Italy who kept this whole team of cars running, because all the time we needed cars. In fact, there's always one of the biggest problems on films is old cars working, because you lose so much time when the car breaks down. But you need an old car if you're making a period film, and it's a big industry. Old cars and old vehicles for films. Sometimes you'll even have to put a rope on them and get 100 people to pull it, or 20 people to pull it, and you put the motor sound on afterwards.
The Japanese invasion of
And what happens if you've got an actor who can't drive a car? and then you need a person to drive the car. You can't have them to drive to the spot. I mean, often you'll have a car driving and then the last 2 meters will be done with the actor in the car. But what if the actor can't drive? But you've got to get the car to stop exactly in front of the camera with all those human beings and the camera, which is worth very valuable. And you've got to make the actor stop. And, I've seen an actor drive into the camera. I've seen actors write off a camera and nearly write off the people behind the camera car. Because the car, they're in an old car and the brake didn't work and it pressed the accelerator, and it's all very, so it can be all those little things. It looks easy and it sounds easy, but it's not.
These might help you to remember the truth.
And then, for example, here was a very, this is the cover of Puyi. This is Puyi on the cover of Time magazine, and it was a real Time magazine. We got her when I saw for the first time the Time magazine, which was the real Time magazine. The one in the film we made look nicer, but the one that we found the day we found it, there was Puyi in the Time magazine. This scene was a scene with incredible costumes in it and incredible props. And it was a recreation, very accurate recreation of the second coronation of Puyi, which was a complete false and fraud created by the Japanese to make Puyi believe that he's going to be an emperor again, and to make the people surrounding that he's an emperor of Manchuria. And when you look at this scene, I mean, that mound of earth, for example, we built everything. It was just in a field. We built this mound of earth. We made this sort of base which resembles the Temple of Heaven in Peking. There was no temple on top. And then everything else was brought in. And this was filmed in the back of beyond this place. It was filmed miles from anywhere, where you couldn't see anything around it. And the costumes are very, very, very rich. Costumes are very, very rich. And when you see the amount of props that we brought from Japan, we brought many vehicles from Japan, because we had to bring Japanese vehicles in. So the Japanese vehicles had to come from Japan. I mean, there's an extensive.
To Earth, to the moon, to the sun.
It was all a false. It was all a show of that he was to be an emperor of a new part of China, and all the characters that were there, who were his cabinet, his future cabinet, and the people who were going to do the business under his seal, but not his will.
I want to bomb Shanghai. Bomb Shanghai?
I hate China.
I hate you.
This is the place where the music is, Sakamoto's music is here. And in fact, you see Sakamoto with a camera in a minute. Rishi Sakamoto playing Yamakatsu. You see him filming this event. And there he is with the camera. And he says in Japanese, action, roll camera, action. And then they move into this scene through this old camera, 35mm camera, in the real palace. This is the real palace that happened. This is all would have been there playing the song, playing the music that Sakamoto composed. This was an empty building that had been protected, but not knocked down, but it was empty. Nothing in there. But it just was there, an empty building that had been kept since the 50s by the Chinese. The land around it, which was originally grounds, had been all built on, many things going on, but the building was still intact. And, you know, although nobody knows that, somehow it gives a sort of an extra weight to a film when you can film a place in the real place, a historical film in the actual place that things happen.
The character played by Richie Sakamoto, called Damakaso, based on a real character who was together the head of the Japanese Secret Service in Manchuria, then called Manchukuo. But meantime, as a cover, he was the director of the feature movies Manchurian studios. And I always loved this union of between the cinema and the Secret Service. I think that cinema is based in voyeurism, in peeping, in spying. You always find the best thing when you look through the keyhole of the camera. And in a way, I feel often that when I'm shooting, I always try to reach a suspense, like if the movie, any movie I've done, basically was a thriller.
Actually, Mr. Oshima introduced me to Bernardo. We met in Cannes, when we went to Cannes after we met Merry Christmas. So over there, I met Bernardo, and in a very loud party, he started talking about his next big project, which is The Last Emperor. So I was just listening to whatever he was saying, for an hour. We were standing, drinking, chatting. Then 1 year later, I got a phone call from Jeremy. But not for music, but for acting first. That was surprising.
Nagisa Oshima is the director of Empire of the Senses. He's a very famous and radical Japanese director, probably after Kurosawa. He's the next. Kurosawa, and now Oshima is the leading living director, although he hasn't worked since Kohato because he's been ill. But he's made most magnificent movies, which have won prizes and are known all over the world in specialized cinema. So he's not wouldn't be called mainstream outside of Japan. Although Merry Christmas and Emperor of the Senses have become very, very well-known films. His films and his film Ceremony was magnificent, and he's made lots and lots of incredible films. And when I had an opportunity to work with him, I knew he was and loved his films, and it was a great opportunity for me. And to that time, up until that was my most successful film that I'd done. And that film put me in contact with Asia a lot. And since then, Takeshi Kitano and Kento Nobu and various other people that I've collaborated with on films in Asia.
And then I needed the composer for the score, and I was very impressed by the work of Sakamoto. And I was also very much in love with the music of the Talking Heads, which at that time had split, and David Byrne was alone, was doing his own music. And I couldn't make up my mind which one of the two composers to take. And at the end I said, why not? Let's take them both.
I did not believe I could be emperor again.
The most extraordinary thing happened. Sakamoto wrote a kind of very full hundred of musicians score. A kind of swelling music, very, very in the tradition of Western classical music. While David Byrne wrote a kind of very preciously nice, cute, irresistible Chinese minimalist music with very little instrument. And I was imagining all these two music meeting in the air. The first time of this computer, because they could write music and communicate through computer, making each other listening to the other one.
The way we worked was not very fun. We just worked separately. I don't remember even we met at that time. Obviously, we met at the ceremony of Academy. But when we were working on the film, I don't remember. Maybe we didn't meet. It was done by totally conducting by Bertolucci. You know, he was conducting 3 composers at the same time in his film. So he's a very good conductor. He must be. My first impression about this film is this is a kind of volume 2 of his epic film Novecento, 1900. So obviously the subject is about China, China's last emperor, but the way he makes a film is to me very continuous, from Novecento through Last Emperor. You know, he has 2 lines, two courses. One is very epic, you know, epic films like Novecento and Last Emperor. The other one is very intimate films like La Luna or Last Tango in Paris and Dreamers. It's very interesting. I like both.
My relationship with Asia is by chance. It's all by chance. It's just, you know, I'm very open to ideas, and I like films from around the world. And I met Hoshima by chance at the Cannes Film Festival in a prize-giving ceremony, where a film I've been involved with won a prize. He had won Best Director. I met him. He then, months later, sent me a very long script of the Lawrence van der Post book called The Seed and the Sower, which was called Merry Christmas to Lawrence, and which we readapted and turned into Merry Christmas. And from that, my relationship with Asia began, because Bernardo then asked me if I'd do this film, and then I made films in other places in Asia through that, and other films with Oshima, and films with Kitano, and films, you know, it became one of the places that I was interested into making films with. You know, there's a very big cinema in Asia, and, you know, whilst the cinema is, you know, it's a very global thing moving around the world, and maybe a lot of the films that I do are more in sync with Asian culture than I am, say, with other cultures.
I just wanted to work with the people I admired, I respected, like Mr. Oshima. We were doing the band Yellow Magic Orchestra for 5 years, and I think that's last year, you know, the 5th year of the band, I got this offer from Jeremy to do music for Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, and not only music, but for acting too. That time was already you know, the time of transition of the band to being an, you know, solo artist. So that offer came to me at the perfect timing. And that was my first film experience, both for acting and making music.
In English, it was called Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, and in Japanese, Senjo no Merry Christmas, which means, you know, Merry Christmas to Lawrence. But the French and the Europe and the Italians and the Spanish, in their wisdom, found it very difficult to translate. You know, Joyeux Noël, Monsieur Lawrence. So Furio means prisoner of war in Japanese.
Do not remember.
Oshima came with Sakamoto and Takeshi Kitano. and I came with David Bowie and Tom Conti, and that's how that film came. Sakamoto was the #1 rock star in Japan. He was the David Bowie of Japan, although he wasn't a classical composer. And this was the Merry Christmas was the first score he composed. Oshima made him do it, and I want you to do the score of this film. And he composed them, definitely one of the. Still, it's one of the seminal scores, Merry Christmas, and you hear that music all the time.
This is the triumph of fascism, triumph of fascist style. In fact, at the beginning of the war, you would have the X, Rome, Berlin, and then Rome, Berlin, Tokyo, and then Rome, Berlin, Tokyo, Manchukuo. That's why in Italy they're calling the axis Roberto, Rome, Berlin, Tokyo. I'm so familiar with the style of those years, which are the years before Second World War, let's say from 30 to 40. That my film, The Conformist, it happens in those years. I'm so familiar that sometimes I feel like if I lived during that period, if I was there personally. In fact, I was there, but only as a movie buff, because I love the movies of those years, especially in France and US.
Why is Prime Minister Xiaoshu not here to receive me?
The Prime Minister has resigned, Your Majesty. His son has been assassinated.
These scenes were set in the Parliament of Manchukuo. In fact, we filmed them in buildings of the period of sort of fascist architecture period buildings, and we filmed them in Rome, and they made those scenes look like Manchuria. Very believable that this was sort of an Art Deco, with Japanese influence, and it's very, very close to what you would imagine to find.
Who are you? Zhang Jinhui, Your Majesty.
John Lone is a very, very unique person. I don't think he ever met his father. He was growing up in Hong Kong. His mother gave the little boy to an old lady. And the old lady decided that he had to go and study at the Peking Opera School. So he told me about his first few years when he was like in a college at the Peking Opera School. All the children would go in the terrace at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they would stay 1 hour on their arms, their legs up, just to reinforce the muscle of the arms, and that would be before breakfast. Then it was hours and hours of exercises, and it was the way he told me how he was studying at the Peking Opera was extraordinary, because you have the example of a discipline which is almost a military discipline. So here you go with the actor who has this fantastic school, and he goes to the West, and he's trying, I think with great success, to fuse together everything that he has learned in the West with his own past of Peking Opera actor and singer.
I'm going to have a child. The father is Manchurian.
With Mark Peploe, we were discussing a lot about what was the real attitude of Puyi toward the Japanese who offered him to be emperor once more. And he thinks that he's right. He thinks that it's very good to go back to his to what he used to be. Probably he knows that being emperor again means being a prisoner again. But it's a kind of very, very strong, irresistible impulse. He wants to go back to the times when he was drunk with omnipotence. Of course, omnipotence is the other face of impotence. But I think that Puyi knew also that.
The Empress is expecting a child.
Yes, Your Majesty. We are aware of the situation.
I don't know how much he allowed himself to think about all these things. I don't know how much he was introspective and analyzing. But the relationship between him and the governor of the prison, who is also his re-educator, it's a relationship that I saw, I wanted to see, like the relationship between a patient, a very neurotic patient, and its shrink. That's why very often we see that the governor, the actor is the great Ingwo Chen, sits behind Puyi in the kind of formal positions of the Kama Sutra between the shrink and the patient.
Indochina, Siam, Malaya, Singapore, and India. Asia belongs to us!
Here I put again my hand in front of Lady Di's eyes. You know where I shot that? Centro Sperimentale di Cinematografia near Cinecittà, which has been built by Mussolini in, I think, 36.
You must learn how to
that wall behind was built. That was a location that was real in front. I think the wall behind was built next to a wall of a soundstage. In fact, I mean, if you look at that building on the right, I think that was a soundstage. Yeah? And those were buildings which were servicing the soundstage, and the wall behind us, the big high wall we built. If I remember the set correctly, how we did it.
You still think I am your servant, don't you?
But he was hopeless. He had no chance. He had an incredible future behind his shoulder. And he knew that. He felt that. I think he knows perfectly how hopeless he is.
Pretending. You are just pretending you have changed.
Shut up! The party teaches us to be new men. We're working for New China!
You worked in Amakase's private office. You are still the same people. People do not change.
God! God! God!
I let it happen.
God! God!
I let it happen.
After he became emperor again, I think things now started to narrow down for him a lot. and certainly there was a great inhumanity towards him and his child, the child of the Empress's child that was to be born. The baby taken away. They took the baby, killed the baby. But that's in the plot, This is tragic. That's the end of her. You don't see her again. She gets taken away. And there he is again. There he is again, puppet.
Japanese with the official language in Manchukuo schools.
Before going to China, the first time I had been to Japan. It was just 2 or 3 years before going to my first recce to Beijing. Great admiration, discovery of the Eastern mystery. But then, having been to China, I could in some way confront, in a very personal way, Japan in one side and China on the other side. Japan seemed to me always a culture with a lot of machism. The Japanese people, in a way, had, in my opinion, some kind of inner military stiffness. China, to me, has always been like a woman. I always felt that China had the characteristic of a very generous and accepting and sensual woman. So it was like the opposition between a macho and a woman, the difference between China and Japan. In fact, the Japanese have done the rape of Nanking, what is called the rape of Nanking, where in 2-3 days they killed 300 people, 300,000 Chinese. One of the most horrible genocides.
With Manchukuo now firmly in their grasp, the Japanese soon controlled most
The Japanese were studying and creating a lot of mass destruction weapons in Manchuria during the period of Puyi. Did Puyi ignore that? I think he wanted to ignore it. He wanted not to know what was going on. He was trying again and again to feel the same feeling that he had the day when, as a child, he was taken in the court of supreme harmony and he saw thousands and thousands of court people kneeling and kowtowing in front of him. It was an irresistible memory, and I think he's never been able to feel the same all his life.
That is recreation of documentary footage. I mean, we put him in, I mean, we integrated black and white footage, of course, of him, i.e. there, look, into the stuff that was real, to show to him that he was there. But in fact, it wasn't the real Puyi, it was our Puyi. The battles and the war and the genocide that went on, the rape of Nanking, etc. And he was forced to watch this stuff, of what he was sanctioning under the Japanese.
I think, it is very much simplified about the history of the relationship between two countries, China and Japan. The reality was much more complicated. It's not just Japanese guys are bad and Chinese are victims. It's related to all the political relationship of not only Japan and China, but United States and also European countries, because everybody wanted China at that time. That's the real history. So when Japan got Manchukuo, the land of China, everybody got angry. So that's why they decided to beat Japan. That was not in the film. Probably my character represents the whole historical background, maybe. But at that time, when I was acting, I didn't know much about that. I argued with Bernardo about how Mr. Amakas commits suicide. In the original script, he commits suicide by harakiri, like a Japanese bushi samurai, and I strongly refused. I even said to Bernardo, "Okay, Bernardo, you choose, either Sakamoto or harakiri." And luckily, he chose me. So he dropped the idea of harakiri because I don't like it. It's too stereotypical. Actually, the real Amakasu, Mr. Amakasu, lived in Paris before he was sent to China. So he was a kind of modern guy. I don't know if he spoke fluent French or not, but he was something. So the idea of Amakasu's office, look at the wall of his office. There's futuristic paintings. There are futuristic paintings all over on the walls of his office. That's perfect, realization of what he was to me. So that's why he has to commit suicide by a gun, not by harakiri, because he's a modern guy.
We must hurry!
There is a moment when Johnston, which is not in the film, but there is a trace of that. Johnston went back to Manchukuo to see Puyi for one day, and he asked him to leave. He tried to explain to Puyi that he was no more an emperor and that he was a puppet. But Puyi couldn't accept. And also the Japanese were very, very careful around him, and he would never have been able to leave the royal palace and to go to the west with Johnston. I mean, there is no redemption for Puyi. Maybe there is some redemption for Johnston, who at the beginning, when the Japanese proposed Puyi to go to Manchukuo and be the emperor again, Johnston hadn't understood the trap that was.
And this is a capture. They're captured or they try and escape.
Russians.
If you are emperor, you are selfish. You don't really consider anybody else. He identified, and he's been told to identify with China, with the destiny of China. And there was a moment, when every year the emperor was going just opposite the Temple of Heaven in Beijing, when there is a platform, and he would sit in meditation in the center of the platform, receiving and he would stay for hours, receiving on himself all the guilt of all the Chinese people. It was like sitting there meditating about all the bad things that happen in his country, and taking on his shoulders the responsibility of everything. Maybe Puyi didn't do it because it was outside the Forbidden City, this thing. But it was something that the emperor was doing every year.
Why can you not leave me alone? You saved my life to make me a puppet in your own play. You saved me because I am useful to you.
Is that so terrible? To be useful?
So before The Last Emperor, music for Merry Christmas was the only soundtrack I did. That music for Merry Christmas is mostly, synthesized. I used 99% synthesizers. So I wanted to do the same way for The Last Emperor, for Bernardo. I even did a demonstration for him before I started working. I brought the whole gear from Tokyo to London and showed how I worked at that time. Samplers and synthesizers and computers, everything. Bernardo kind of liked it, but he asked me, Yuichi, where's players, like a violin player's noises, like noises of clothes, noises of chairs? Where are those noises? And I didn't know what to say. Okay, I gave up.
You see, I will end up living in prison longer than you.
And in 1959, he's given his pardon. He's become a citizen after his re-education. 10 years, and we see him in the botanical gardens in Peking.
So I gave Bernardo probably 4 or 5 demos for the main theme. So finally he chose this theme, and I like this one best. So I still love this melody and the nuance of different things, complexity, modernness and antiqueness and westernness and orientalness, and whatever. We didn't have much time, so mailing or shipping took too much time. We asked the National Broadcasting Company, which is NHK in Japan and BBC in UK. They had a satellite connection, so we asked them to use for us. So I got just 1 hour for each day or something. So transferring all the data, digital data from Tokyo to London. Incredible.
He comes out, and this scene, which is an extraordinary scene, is a scene of the Red Guards with the pictures of Mao and the governor. We then come and see Puyi sees the governor as a prisoner being re-educated by Red Guards, the person who re-educated him. They were purging the culture with a new culture. And all the wise people and the teachers had to go to the fields. And the people who were in the fields came to the cities. It was a cultural revolution. The history books, not the books, but certainly this was something that people were quite quiet about. And it was not until you got to know people very well when you were talking about that. And it was the power of youth, the strength of youth. And
It is dangerous.
And Mao empowered people. They empowered this movement to happen, to bring people like the governor of the prison. And what an incredible moment for Puyi to come across this.
It is the governor of our prison.
The person who educated him is he himself now being re-educated. And Puyi can't believe it, but he's a good man, he's a good man. This is a good man. And it shows the river of time and how politics move on. It's quite extraordinary. But this scene, the significance of this scene to me today is that we couldn't film this today, probably, in China. Because I don't think you'll be allowed to recreate Red Guards inside of Tiananmen Square, where as this camera pans round, you can see at the end of the road Tiananmen Square. Somebody with a typewriter around their neck. It's a punishment because they were a writer.
Comrade, this must be a mistake. I know this man. He is a good man. Who are you? I am a gardener.
The governor of prison. This is true. It's the truth that happened to the governor of prison. Maybe this incident, very, very incident, didn't happen at this very moment, but he was taken and re-educated in the Cultural Revolution.
But what has he done?
He's been accused.
Accused of what?
Emperor's lucky. Within his element.
I was watching the whole film over and over again. I had only 2 weeks to compose and record and bring everything to London to get approval. So everything was done in 2 weeks from scratch. The procedure of film music is always short, always at the last minute.
And you have this dance that happens now, which I thought was just a wonderful feeling of the painting. You got the feeling of what it was, and you know these paintings, this art, political art. Well, I don't know. I don't know what they do about it. I mean, they let us do it, and they didn't at that time. They weren't worried about us doing this thing. And it's very beautiful, that dancing, and you know, something we don't see. Again, this film had such a broad strokes of time and culture and history that you got so much out of it. You could see so much of it, and all the detail. Again, it's a massive amount of detail in the film. Coming to the end, which is, I mean, I think one of the wonderful Chinese boxes, that the cricket that was in the box is still under the throne at the end, and the cricket is still there, you know, and it comes out alive, you know. And I think this is, you know, that was a wonderful thing. When I read that in the script for the first time, I knew that was such a very special thing to shoot. And we come to these places where we've seen in the movie before this old man coming into his palace. And it's very moving, you know. And the place where he walked down as a child, it says, "No trespass, don't walk on here." And then he walks up where he walked down there as a child, as a baby emperor. And into it, and I think it's very hard for people not to be moved. If we've been on that journey with him, it's impossible not to be moved by the bringing together of this incredible story and this life adventure into a moment, you know, the cleaner hadn't even been in there to move the cricket cage.
I don't know if the kind of apologue of the emperor that instead of being decapitated by the revolution becomes a gardener in the botanical garden of Beijing. It seemed to me a little bit too made up on a kind of propaganda way. So I couldn't accept it exactly like that, like it was given to me by the biographers of Puyi. So I decided to end the character in a kind of poetic way. He goes back to his own cocoon, the Forbidden City, and he disappears. He disappears around, or near, or inside, or behind that throne that meant so much to him. Before disappearing, he finds a little cricket cage that he had hidden long time ago. He shows it to a little boy, who is probably the son of some doorman of the Forbidden City. And he opens it at, like then, when he was a little child. He was a hopeless emperor, he was a puppet, but he's a poet. He's able to materialize a little cricket that comes out. It must be very old, that cricket, like in a fairy tale. But the cricket comes out, and as the cricket comes out and it's free, the emperor disappears. There is no more Puyi. Puyi has become a kind of logo for tourist groups, a name of a legendary character.
The last emperor to be crowned here was Aizenjora Puyi. He was 3 years old. He died in 1967.
The film was photographed by Vittorio Storaro, the very noted, brilliant, and many Oscar director of photography, who is a magician with light and photography, and he was a wonderful collaborator on this film. Also, the other collaborators in the film were outstanding. There was Nando Scarfiotti, who was the production designer, who also designed many of Visconti's films, including Death in Venice. He was a revelation for me to work with. The costume designer was a wonderful costume designer, or is a wonderful costume designer, who is, I think, this year being given the Guild's highest award in a Lifetime Achievement Award, called James Acheson, I think he's also got 4 or 5 Oscars. And then the editor, Gabriele Cristiani, a wonderful editor. So, and the musicians and the composer, Sakamoto, David Byrne. So the collaborators on this film were a wonderful group of people, and every film is a collaboration with many people, apart from, of course, the director who collaborates with these people, but I also have a collaboration with a lot of the crew who are unspoken of, and certainly on a film like that, you know that you can see that they existed, because a film like this doesn't happen by chance. All the stuff doesn't arrive by chance, and there's a wonderful group of people who are on the, of course, named on the credits, who worked with the Italians, Chinese, British.
Here we are.
someone sent us the lyrics, actually for the theme of separation. The lyrics say, "Open my door, open my door." It's hilarious, It's so terrible.
I'm glad you have enjoyed this journey through The Last Emperor, and certainly it was an experience for me that I doubt if I'll find again. And I hope that I've managed to illuminate some of the places that I can help on, and I hope that you listen to the commentary from the director and the writers and anybody else who's been assembled to enhance your enjoyment.